Hey Guardians, I just want to let everyone know that I do have both a Twitch and a Twitter, and I'm very active on both. Feel free to come give me a follow on both, links in the description. Alright everyone, so before we get into the video, look at the timestamps on your screen now. We're covering a variety of different topics in this video, and the timestamps are showing you which topic we're talking about as far as the Trials rework goes, so that you can skip ahead to whatever you want. This is just mainly meant to be an opinion video as well as an information video, so pay attention to the timestamps and just skip to whatever part you want to see. But for now, we'll get into the main video. Hey Guardian, so with the huge Trials rework, I thought we'd just do a quick video to talk about how the rework is going, whether or not I like it, and how you guys can min-max and get the most out of your passages here. So the first thing I'm just going to talk about really quick is now we have two passages. There's been a little bit of confusion surrounding these, so I'm just going to clear some of this up really quick. First off, you have the Trials of Osiris passage. This passage does not give you the Lighthouse. You cannot get to the Lighthouse in the Trials of Osiris passage. All that this passage does is it gives you access to Trials of Osiris. And you can see the description here grants access to this week's Trials of Osiris tournament. Each victory grants significantly improved rewards. Each match completed with a full fire team grants a bonus chance for additional rewards. And this passage also has just baked in SBMM. You'll be playing against people with similar performance that week. So if you don't care about going to the Lighthouse at all, then this is the one you get. Then just load in with some friends, just play it, how you would play any other PvP mode, and you have a chance at getting some rewards. However, if you do want to go to the Lighthouse, you need the Lighthouse passage now. Now, the way that this works is you can just go for 7 wins, and you can go to the Lighthouse for at least one Adept weapon. However, at the Lighthouse chest, the longer a win streak you have, the better rewards you will get. And I don't know why it's showing my flawless as 6. I definitely got 7. At least I'm pretty sure I did. I'm pretty sure that's where the red glow comes from. But that's how these flawless passages work. And also, if you want to go for the longer win streaks, and it is doable to get, a 5, 6, 7 win streak, then if you take a loss, just reset until you hit the number of wins that you get. It's perfectly doable, and I am going to talk about how pretty much anyone can reach whatever milestone they want to hit on their win streak. And it is worth trying to get at least something of a win streak, because I'm sure you guys have seen clips on Twitter and from other YouTubers. If you get a good win streak going, and I did have a 7 win streak, then you get a ton of loot from that chest. I mean, an explosion. Like, I didn't bother counting, but it was probably like, man, I don't even know, but I want to say like 6, 7, 8 drops maybe. It's a ton, so it is worth trying to get a win streak if you're going to the Lighthouse. Now, as far as how I went flawless, I was playing with a buddy of mine. He was on Solar Warlock, I was on Void Hunter, and it took us 2 attempts. On the first attempt, we lost on, I believe, the 4th win, and then after that, we hit a 7 win streak, and it really wasn't that tough. In fact, that 7 win streak probably only took us like maybe 30 minutes. It was very quick. There were a couple of sweatier matches, but for the most part, it was pretty easy. As far as what I was running Radiant Dance Machines for obvious reasons. If you're on Void Hunter with Invis Dodge, Radiant Dance Machines is probably the best option, purely because you get so much more uptime on those Invis Dodges than on the Prowl, just because this is a broken aspect. Genuinely, this is way overtuned inside of PvP. It is incredibly strong. And it gets even stronger if you're playing with someone who you can communicate with, who you have good team synergy with, because anytime you get that smoke cloud on a kill, they can take full advantage of it. You can both go invis and then potentially just fly at, the remaining 2 players without them knowing that you're coming. So those are my aspects. I started out on suppressor grenades, however, with the mistake that was adding bolt charge barricades, I ended up swapping to vortex grenade, simply because if I saw a Titan pop a bolt charge barricade, I would wombo combo it with the smoke bomb and the vortex grenade, and that would give us a chance to kill the Titan while also having the vortex grenade just putting in really heavy damage on the barricade itself. Outside of that, dodge is pretty well dealer's choice. I ran marksman's dodge just in the event I needed an emergency reload. Tether just so that I have a okay-ish shutdown super. Tether is okay. The main issue with it is the tethers themselves just don't deploy fast enough. That's my main issue with it. But as long as you're careful with it and use it to kind of set a trap for your enemies, then it can work out still just fine. Then here are my fragments. And as far as weapons go, I had Rose and Scavenger's Fate, and then I also had a 120 and a Fatebringer that I could swap off to in the event that I needed more range. Heavy weapon is just the seasonal LMG. I actually really like this thing in PvP. It feels awesome. Then you can see my armor mods here. Nothing really fancy going on. Just mostly stuff for my guns, honestly. And that's what I used to go flawless, and it worked out really well. Void Hunter is incredibly strong. As far as drops go, I got fairly lucky with my drops. This was one of the better ones I had. Opening shot, PI, keep away. Unfortunately, no ricochet rounds, but it still works just fine. I still have 84 range, which is plenty. Then you can see the other two that I got that I really like. I wish this one had been Adept because it's basically a perfect 5 out of 5. And then this one here as well. Now let's talk a little bit about if this rework is feeling good, and then we'll talk about how pretty much any of you can go flawless, because genuinely, getting to the Lighthouse is now the easiest it has ever been in Trials of Osiris. So even if you don't like Trials, and you all know me, I am the Traveler's strongest Trials of Osiris hater, there's really no reason not to play. It's literally just that easy to hit the Lighthouse now. So first off, let's talk about some of the pros. Like I was saying, the main appeal here, like I was saying, is it's easy to reach the Lighthouse, and Trials just showers you with loot now, and it does so in a way that actually incentivizes playing with friends and going for win streaks. Like, you can play solo, but it's going to be a lot harder. You are much better off, ideally in a trio, but at the very least in a duo. One, because it will just make it easier, it will make it more playable, and two, because the more people you play with, the more rewards you get. Now, like I said, playing in a trio is ideal, however, a duo is still doable. Like I said, when I went flawless, I was just playing with one of my buddies, and we reached that 7-win streak fairly easily. The next thing worth mentioning is the delayed zone and longer cap time feels much, much better. It's not like the previous iteration of zone trials where you just immediately had to try to get, control of that cap point, or else there was a high chance you were going to lose. You can play pretty normally for most of the round. And on top of that, the rounds now go fast enough that matches pretty rarely come down to supers, which is really nice because it means that you don't have to, if you're on Titan, you don't have to run bubble, or if you're on Warlock, you don't have to run well because you have to worry about the zone. And then the last thing that I'll mention real quick is the new weapons, Exalted Truth and the Sniper Keen Thistle, I believe it's called, are both very, very good. And I will have a full review out on both of these weapons soon. I don't know what's going on with Exalted Truth. If you saw my original review on this, two-ish years ago, I want to say, the main issue with it was it just felt kind of awkward, kind of weird to use. I don't know what they did, but they must have tweaked something with Exalted, because the really amazing perk pool aside, Exalted just feels much better to actually use and shoot. It's a very, very good hand cannon. And on top of that, keep in mind, later in the episode, they are going to be reprising the Inquisitor as well, so that adds another slug shotgun to the pool, and slugs are probably the best option if you're going to go with a shotgun. I do think pound for pound that fusion rifles are the best overall choice for a special weapon in the game right now, but slugs are still very good. They're probably a fairly close second. Now let's talk about the cons. If you hit that 7-win streak mark, then trying to play solo after is basically unplayable, mainly just due to poor lobby balancing. Like, you can take a look at this screenshot I took of one of my solo matches after the win streak, and yeah, I genuinely, I do not know how my two teammates were even in that same lobby as me. I do have a theory with this, because this was pretty consistent during my solo matches, and that is that with how easy carries are now, a lot of these players in these higher end lobbies probably just shouldn't be there. They probably got carried, they probably finished with a relatively good score, a higher win streak, and so they're just ending up in lobbies that they shouldn't be in. And I'm not going to talk about the whole whether or not carry and carry culture and all that has been good or bad for the game. Like, at this point, that's just beating a dead horse. There's no reason to really talk about it one way or the other at this point. But again, once you hit a higher win streak, do not try to play solo. It is miserable. You will get lobby balance straight to hell, and it is borderline unplayable. Now, the next thing is the sandbox, meaning just the general PvP sandbox, still has plenty of issues. I will say I don't have that much of a complaint about where the primary sandbox is. I don't think it's really that bad overall. And actually, this weekend, I saw way more variety in the types of primaries that were being used than I have in a very, very long time inside of Trials. But even with that, the uptime of special weapons is still an issue, with fusions really being the main problem there. And then on top of that, ability spam, of course, still a huge problem, especially on certain classes such as Invis Hunter with RDMs is genuinely broken. It is completely and utterly broken. Then, of course, Solar Lock, Float Lock is always a menace. I hate Float Lock. And then Bolt Charge Titans are extremely annoying. Not necessarily enough to turn the tide of a match, but they're just very unfun and frustrating to play against, and Bolt Charge barricades need to be disabled completely in PvP. Now, that being said, most of the people using Bolt Charge aren't exactly the best players, and there's definitely ways to play around it, like in this clip here.
The one guy's top in. Top end to the right to left, I mean. He's Bolt Charge. Nice. Dude, this is crazy. It's like a final boss. I was like peek shot from the top, and then I would take a break, and let you peek shot him and take a break. It's like, that's crazy.
Like you can see, Trev and I just took turns essentially DPSing the guy. I take a shot, Trev take a shot, I take a shot. That's one way you can handle it. There are plenty of others. Duskfields can make a pretty good counter just to get them off the barricade. Like I said, smoke with the vortex grenade just to try to nuke the barricade, so on and so forth. There are ways you can deal with it. It's just intensely annoying. And it can get infinitely worse than someone just sitting behind a bolt charge barricade and just taking pot shots. Such as with one of the few very close matches that Trev and I had was actually against two Bolt Charge Titans, and the way they were doing it is they would essentially just sit behind the barricade, get their Bolt Charge stacks, and then just fly at us with Ballistic Slam. Because the powered Titan melees on Arc Titan with Bolt Charge will one-shot you. And this was just super frustrating and annoying to play against. We did manage to win because eventually we just started playing pretty passively, baiting out the melees, that sort of thing. But it was just a very unfun match, and it was closer than it should have been, because when those guys didn't have their bolt charge and they had to use their weapons, they were completely useless. So even though a lot of the bolt charge guys aren't necessarily the best players, it's still something that you should approach with caution, so keep that in mind. But overall, the changes feel good, and with the massive increase in drops, Trials does feel much more rewarding to play. I think at this point, Trials is less of like the endgame PvP mode and more of a loot mode, which is fine with me because like comp should be the endgame mode. So, hopefully comp gets some more love at some point. And Trials felt rewarding enough that, again, for me, even as, God's strongest Trials hater, I can see myself playing Trials nearly every weekend this season purely for the drops. Now, let me talk about where I've seen probably the most overall success this weekend. If you are on Hunter, you should be on Void Hunter. It is probably the strongest overall class for Hunter at this moment. And I would say you should be on RDMs for most loadouts and weapon combos and all that, purely because you get so much uptime on your invis dodges. And obviously, I would combine this with On the Prowl for obvious reasons. You mark someone, if you or a teammate kills them, it just spawns a smoke on wherever they died, which will weaken anyone who runs through it. It can help prevent revives, and if you or your teammates run through that smoke cloud, it will also turn them invisible. It's a really, really broken fragment. Next, if you're on Warlock, I would still say that Solar Lock is by far the best option. There is no sandbox where Solar Warlock will not be meta. You have healing grenades, healing rifts, scatter grenades, fusion grenades, heat rises, Icarus dash, Well of Radiance, Song of Flame, Dawnblade, probably the 3 most suppressive supers in the game, and you have that all on one class. So Solar Warlock is literally never a bad choice, and the same thing is true in the current state of trials. Solar Warlock is still extremely, extremely strong. Then lastly, for Titans, unfortunately, I think Bolt Charge is probably the best overall option if you use it appropriately, mainly meaning you can't just count on Bolt Charge to just get the kill. You still have to play somewhat smart with it. I saw a lot of Titans who put way too much faith in those Bolt Charge barricades, and they paid the price because of it, both on my team and on the enemy team. Do I like Bolt Charge? No. Inside of PvP, I don't think barricades need to give any sort of extra bonus. They're already plenty strong as is. They provide on-demand cover. They hurt anyone who walks through it, so that means that they can also double as area denial. They're a way to get a free res, so on and so forth. So I don't think barricades need to give Bolt Charge, or overshields for that matter, inside of trials at all. Now, if you don't want to play Bolt Charge, then pound for pound, Void Titan is probably still the most brain-dead class in the game, because you can just give yourself an overshield for free. Or, of course, Prismatic Titan is still extremely strong, mainly because with Prismatic, you essentially have 2 supers, and, Shiver Strike is there for movement, and it's still arguably the best melee available for Titans. Overall, I think that in the current state of the sandbox, if you're going to run Prismatic, you should probably be on Titan. Now let's talk about the best ways to play, and what I mean by this is how you can mid-max your card the most effectively to get the most rewards. And I'm going to talk about this kind of depending on different skill levels. So first, if you're above average to a high skill player, you absolutely, like I said, you want to trio or duo with another good player and just go for the 7 wins. It is perfectly doable, and with the loot incentives, there is literally no reason to not try to go for 7 wins. So if you take a loss before 7 wins, just reset the card and go again, because you can still do that. My buddy and I did it, and we got the 7 wins. It took, I think, 2 attempts, but we did get it. Then after that, take one other friend who is good at PvP and go into LFG groups and offer to do trials carries or trials helps. These are the easiest they have ever been right now, and you don't necessarily have to get your carry a 7 win streak. If they just want to get to the Lighthouse, then just get them to 7 wins. If they want to be able to farm adepts after reaching the Lighthouse, get them to a 4 win streak and then just finish out the card. If they want a chance at cosmetics on wins, get them to a 5 win streak, and after that, again, just finish out the card regardless of match outcome so they can go to the Lighthouse, and make sure that they know how to get there, because I've noticed, I helped someone get to the Lighthouse this weekend, and I've noticed that some people actually just seem to not know where the place is in the menu to actually load into the Lighthouse, so at least make sure they know how to do that. And this is the best option, since playing with someone who has not been to the Lighthouse yet also keeps you out of the SBMM pool, which means you'll get easier matches, your carry gets to the Lighthouse, and you all get bonus drops purely because you're playing stacks. So it's a win-win for both parties involved. And again, while there's controversy around carries and carry culture and all that, that's just the best way to go right now. And on top of that, with SBMM being a factor now once you've hit the Lighthouse, there's literally no reason to play otherwise. If you don't do this, you will just match the same teams over and over again, and whatever you do, do not queue solo on a 7 win streak. It is borderline unplayable. Now, for my more average and below average skilled players, there's a few ways you can approach this, both in how you min-max your loot and your match quality. I'm also going to tell you how to approach matches if you're being helped or carried by better players. And what I mean by that is I'm going to tell you basically just how you should play if you're being carried. Now, when I talk about how you can try to min-max your rewards the best, it's mainly affecting the frequency and types of rewards that you can get on wins if you decide to continue playing trials after going to the Lighthouse. And you can see on this spreadsheet right here, 1 win, 40% chance of enhancement prisms, 15% chance of ascendant shards, so on and so forth. You get the idea. So if you really want to min-max this, but you think that for you that a, 7 streak just isn't possible, or you think it isn't ideal purely because of the type of SBMM you're going to get, then the milestones you should be looking for should be, if you just care about adept weapons, then a 4 streak, since that gives you the 50% chance of getting an adept weapon from wins after hitting the lighthouse. Or if you want a chance at cosmetics, then a 5 win streak. You still get the 50% chance of adept weapon drops. You also get half a point towards the vehicle and 1 point towards the emblem. And the points, I believe, are guaranteed on a win. And the 50% chance drop for an adept weapon, like, it's not the best, but it's still okay. So once you hit one of those milestones, literally just finish out the card regardless of match outcome. If you get, a 6 win or a flawless, then hey, that's awesome. Good for you. You can get the max rewards anytime you win a match from then on. But again, keep in mind that SBMM is going to feel really rough. So take that into consideration when you're thinking about how you want to approach all this. So first off, again, if you don't care about the Lighthouse or adept weapons at all, don't even bother with the Lighthouse passage. Just buy the Trials of Osiris passage, get some friends, and play together for bonus drops. Since there's literally no stakes whatsoever on that passage, you can just play however you want. Now, if you do want to go to the Lighthouse, you need to ask yourself, what do you want to get from it? Do you just want to get to the Lighthouse? Then just get the Lighthouse passage and get 7 wins. You can get this done alone or find players to help you. It doesn't really matter. It will be easier if you find players to help you, though. Do you want to be able to farm adept weapons after, meaning you plan on continuing to play trials for the weekend and you want to have a chance for adepts to drop after a match? If that's the case, find some people who will help you and have them get you to a 4 win streak after that. Just finish out the card regardless of if you win or lose. Given that after you go to the Lighthouse, you're now in the SBMM pool, and that the SBMM is based off of your performance for the week, you might honestly have an easier time if you just get the 4 win streak, take a loss, then just finish out the card regardless of outcome. Now, do you want to have a chance at cosmetics on match wins? If that's the case, same process I just went to, except find a team who can help you get to a 5 win streak, because at 5 wins you have a chance for cosmetics to drop on match wins, and you get points towards those cosmetics that increase your chances of them dropping. Those are the 2 main milestones I would look for. Once you hit those milestones, again, depending on what you want, just finish out the card regardless of match outcome, go to the Lighthouse, and then just keep going from there. Now, as far as how you should conduct yourself, how you should play while you're being helped or carried, here are the top 5 things to keep in mind. Number 1, play with your team. Do not run off on your own. Play with your team. Put in damage where you can. Try to help them team shoot where you can. Number 2, do not overextend or just stand in the open. Again, stay with your team and play cover. Don't just stand in the open and die, because that will signal the enemy team to fly at your partners, and that will likely end badly. Then number 3, show up with a serious loadout. No meme off-meta garbage. Your carriers are doing you a favor, and showing up with a serious loadout will show them that you're serious about what you're doing, and it will help put their minds at ease. Plus, you'll just have an easier time as well. Number 4, and expanding on that a little bit, when I say show up with a serious loadout, I also mean a map appropriate loadout. Meaning, say the map is a longer range map like Eternity. Don't load in with a sidearm, put on a pulse rifle, scout rifle, maybe a 120 hand cannon, so on and so forth. Then 5, lastly and most importantly, listen to your carriers and do what they tell you. They will probably be giving you instructions. Make sure that you follow them. If you are being carried, then the people you're playing with are likely better at the game than you, so listen to them. Yes, they're getting extra drops from playing with you, but they're still doing you a favor, and you will make everyone's lives easier if you just listen to them. Plus, you might learn something in the process which will help you become a better player. So, if they tell you to run from a fight, then run. If they tell you to take a fight, take it. If they tell you to peek a lane or an angle with them, peek it. If they tell you to fly at someone, someone, fly at them. If they tell you to stand on the capture point, then do it. And most importantly, listen to how they instruct you to use your abilities and super. If there's an enemy res down and they tell you to put a smoke bomb or a grenade on it, then do it. And even more importantly, if they tell you to use your super, then please, for the love of God, use that super. Obviously, you should try to do so intelligently, like don't throw a blade barrage into a wall, but do not take a super into orbit because that will almost certainly cost you a match, and that's always infuriating. Like genuinely, if I'm helping a friend do a carry and the carry takes a super to orbit and that costs us a match, that carry likely ends right there because that is a hard throw. But if you can follow those basic instructions, you and the people helping you will just have an easier time reaching whatever goal it is that you want. Now, the next thing is, will this help trials in the long term? I think the rework will probably help for most of the season. This weekend may have been an anomaly just because of the adept weapon itself. I mean, hand cannons are just very popular weapons overall, and Exalted Truth has great PvP roles and it has great PvE roles. I would imagine the population will also be very good for the new sniper and maybe for Shayura's, as well as for when Inquisitor gets reprised later in the season, but I would not expect it to be nearly as good for like Aisha's Embrace or the Heavy Burst hand cannon. Now, at the end of the day, it's really too soon to see if this will keep the Trials population healthy long term, but I don't really expect it to. The reality is PvP players play PvP for the sake of PvP, and at some point loot just isn't a good enough incentive to play if the sandbox feels bad, and with abilities and special weapons being so out of bounds right now, the sandbox still feels pretty damn bad. And if the sandbox feels bad, it doesn't matter how good the loot is. PvP players just won't play. They'll do other things or they'll play other games. And the competitive playlist is the perfect example of this. Rose is the best legendary PvP 140 in the game. Deadlock is the best PvP shotgun in the game. Redrix's S-Stock is one of the best PvP pulse rifles in the game right now. And comp is still a dead playlist. If the sandbox still feels bad, then loot will stop being enough to get people to play trials, and trials will start dying again. Now the next thing is, does this help PvP as a whole? No, it doesn't. Mainly because sixes and comps still feel awful, and if PvP's only good on the weekends, it's just going to keep dying. Now, sixes probably needs a rework next, purely because that's where most people are going to spend their PvP time anyway. So in sixes, better rewards, no SBMM, less special ammo with a nerf to fusion so they cannot hit out to SMG ranges anymore, and harsher ability and super cooldowns are needed there, as well as no shared heavy ammo, period. On top of that, we need nerfs to specific abilities again inside of PvP specifically. Like, scatter grenades should not be able to one-shot you, barricades should not give overshields or bolt charge, invis dodge needs a longer cooldown, healing rifts should not be able to heal a warlock over and over again through a gunfight, so on and so forth. Plus, for the love of God, please remove the quitter penalties. Given that there are zero stakes in sixes and most of the maps in this game aren't good, the quitter penalties just shouldn't be there. They don't need to be. And people still quit anyway. Like, if I get disjunction, I'm leaving. I don't care if I get a penalty. If I get a quitter penalty and I'm streaming, then I'll go run errands at the tower. If I get a quitter penalty and I'm not streaming, then I'm just straight up going to go play a different game that doesn't feel like it's wasting my time. And you can apply a lot of those same changes to comp, less special ammo, less abilities, less super, so on and so forth. But even with all that, until Bungie really starts bringing down the hammer on cheaters on a regular basis, comp's going to stay dead because there's no point in trying to get past platinum. But overall, Trials did feel better than it has been, and with the healthier population, as long as the population stays healthy, I will continue to play Trials on a regular basis, purely just for the drops. So at least in the more, short to mid-term, I do think it's going to help. Long term, it remains to be seen, and if they want Trials to stay healthy in the long term, then Bungie's just gotta start jumping on issues in PvP, and they've gotta start doing it faster. That's the main thing. They have got to start doing it faster. Like, listen, Lodestar getting disabled and RDMs getting a nerf, not enough of a nerf, but still a nerf as quickly as they did is great, but Like, bolt charge still should have been disabled, and that's just, that's just like the bare minimum right now for PvP to feel playable. But other than that, I had a fairly good time last weekend, and next weekend that we have Trials, Iron Banner, of course, is this coming week. It'll probably already be here by the time you see this video. But the next time Trials is up, I'm going to play it again, though I will not make the mistake of even attempting to play solo. Other than that, Guardians, that's all for me today. You all know the drill. If you enjoyed this video, do me a favor, leave me a comment with how your Trials experience was this weekend, hit the like button, and then hit that subscribe button with the bell icon. If you really liked the video, consider checking out my other links, or maybe leaving a tip, just because, as I've said in my last video, currently any tips that I get are going to fund a new PC since my current one is wearing out. Again, no pressure, I'm just glad that you're all here, but there is that option if you want to add a little extra support there. But for now, Guardians, I will see you all in the next video. I will be streaming Iron Banner this week. We will have a bunch of reviews out this week. I'll see you all in the next video. Have a good one.